So as Carolyn just said, Democrats and Republicans will vote on a measure to keep the government funded through early December and avert this shutdown. The stopgap bill will include emergency funding for natural disaster relief and to assist in Afghan refugee resettlement, amongst so much more. Joining us now to unpack this is Caroline Heldman, professor of critical theory and social justice at Occidental College. As always, every Thursday. Good morning. We really need you this time.
Good morning, Giselle. Great to see you.
Great to see you, too. A lot on the line. The debt ceiling has been suspended, but President Biden is mounting an all-out effort at this 11th hour to salvage his agenda. So much on the line. Where do we stand this morning, Caroline?
Well, there are four moving pieces, which is why this is so complicated, right? And folks may be having an issue following it. The first is the budget bill to keep the doors of our federal government open, which you just mentioned, will pass today. The second is raising the debt ceiling. This has happened 78 times in U.S. history. It is often used as a partisan football, which is what is happening right now, but we have until October 18th to raise the debt ceiling. The third piece is the infrastructure bill that the Senate has already passed, and it's now being held up in the House by progressive Democrats. And the fourth piece is this more ambitious budget, which has, care economy funding as well as climate crisis funding. And this is what progressives are really pushing for, to couple it with the infrastructure bill. So Biden has to focus on getting those last two in, and that is where he actually has to massage his own party, the centrists with Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin in the Senate, and the progressives in the House who want these bills coupled together.
So how does the president and Nancy Pelosi, for that matter, bring the party together? They're not just battling the GOP with Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema particularly. They keep asking, well, what is it that you want if you're holding it up? And they do not come back with answers. What's going on?
Well, they, in recent days, have made it clear that they don't want to raise taxes on the wealthiest Americans, and this is the primary way that the Biden administration wants to fund their agenda. And so that is really the sticking point. As you know, Giselle, Kristen Sinema has been in and out of the White House for negotiations, and they're obviously putting a lot of pressure on Joe Manchin as well. But there is this group of progressives in the House that is really pushing and saying, look, we don't want to pass the infrastructure bill, which is half of the big piece of Biden's agenda. The other half is this more progressive climate change care economy bill. They're saying, look, we're not going to pass it unless they both go together. So Biden is going to use his 40 years, there we go, of experience in Congress to really push this through. And you saw yesterday, Nancy Pelosi's on the phone at the congressional game. Biden is there massaging votes. I mean, it's a full court press from the Biden administration.
Right, but so far we're at a stalemate. Everyone's waiting for who's going to blink first. What do you think is going to happen in the 11th hour?
Well, I think we'll definitely pass a budget resolution. I think the Democrats will have the 3 weeks that they need to raise the debt ceiling through a process called reconciliation, which is complicated, but they have the time to do it. I would imagine that the infrastructure bill will pass. It will likely be coupled with this larger care economy bill, but it will be vastly scaled back in order to bridge the differences in the Democratic Party.
So, Carolina, as you well know, Biden's poll numbers are down, particularly after Afghanistan, and now with all of this. What's the implication if this is not successful and they cannot bring their party together to get anything passed?
Well, there you have it. I mean, you've laid it out. The poll numbers are down globally. The handling or mishandling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan has hurt our reputation, as we heard from the generals a few days ago. Biden's presidency hangs in the balance here, and I don't say this lightly. This is his big agenda. We're heading into the 2022 midterm elections, and this will be what the Democrats run on. There's always a big swing to the other party. And so if Biden is unsuccessful here, it will actually have ripple effects for the 2022 midterm elections, and he will be held accountable for that.
And just briefly, what is the direct impact for us here in California?
Well, in terms of infrastructure, like most states, we have crumbling infrastructure, bridges and roads, but it will also mean broadband. It will mean investments in transportation, the likes of which we have not seen in over half a century. So it'll have a profound effect there. It will also have a profound effect in terms of carbon neutrality and climate change initiatives. And the big kind of care economy piece would be more funding for paid family leave, more funding to take care of elderly residents. In the state of California, family members would have more support with that. It's a massive shift in the way in which we view government, right? Not as Ronald Reagan, like stay out of our lives, government is the problem. Biden is saying the government is the solution.
Yeah, well, keep us posted on all developments. Obviously, it really matters here and in every city across this nation. I do want to ask you about the fireworks from the testimony from Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, General Mark Milley, and General Kenneth McKenzie. They all testified, as you know, before the Senate, that they wanted to leave at least 2,500 troops in Afghanistan, but the president did not listen. First of all, how impactful was that testimony?
Well, that was damning testimony, I think, for the Biden administration and the Trump administration. Those were their two targets of blame. As you note, Giselle, they wanted to keep 2,500 troops in Afghanistan and then made the decision that it was too risky to do so once it fell so quickly to the Taliban. And they blamed the fall, the very quick fall of the Taliban back with President Trump and the Doha Agreement, where he had a unilateral agreement with the Taliban government. So a lot of moving parts here, but the generals were very clear that the war on terror is not going away anytime soon, and that this has profoundly affected trust that countries will have in the United States moving forward.
I don't know if you heard, I'm sure you did, Representative Matt Gaetz question General Milley's patriotism in these fiery remarks. And then fellow Republican Liz Cheney defended Milley and actually apologized for those of her party who were disrespectful. How unprecedented was that?
Very unprecedented, Giselle. I mean, we are seeing behavior from Liz Cheney that is breaking with her party. It is very clear that she has political aspirations beyond being in Congress, perhaps, but also she's being driven by an ideology and has been for quite some time in calling out the January 6th insurrection. Obviously, her behavior yesterday, she is not popular with her party. She has been demoted for this behavior, but at the end of the day, she appears to be more driven by ideology and her values than by partisanship.
Yeah, and she may lose her seat in Wyoming come the elections. All right, the House committee investigating the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol, they issued another batch of these subpoenas. The former president is saying not to do it. He's trying to exert executive privilege. Does he have a leg to stand on legally?
He does not, Giselle. The only person who can assert executive privilege is the current sitting president, and that is Joe Biden. And Joe Biden has made it very clear that he will not stand in the way of the January 6th violent insurrection investigations.
But he could still hold this up in the courts by filing appeals, right?
He absolutely could. In fact, Donald Trump is the king of nuisance lawsuits in order to slow things down or distract.
Okay, I have just 40 seconds, but Karen Bass running for mayor, do you think she's making a misstep and she should have stayed and potentially taken over Nancy Pelosi's seat or even Dianne Feinstein's?
Well, she's such a gifted politician. It's hard to say whether you want her at the federal level or you want her at the local level. But I will say the housing crisis and what we have faced with the COVID-19 crisis in Los Angeles, I think we would be in great hands with Karen Bass.
Mm-hmm. And I have now literally 30 seconds left. I keep pushing the time on you, Caroline. Britney Spears, the conservatorship. Why suspend? You have to answer it quickly, though. Why suspend and not just remove Jamie Spears?
Well, this is what Britney Spears wants, and she is saying that she is ready for that. And her father even is saying that he wants to defend it.
Caroline, thank you. You got it all in. We appreciate it. We'll be right back, everyone. This is your morning on Spectrum News 1.